What if the person you loved most turned into a stranger in your own home? What if be patient slowly became be silent, and silence became a prison? Would you keep shrinking yourself to fit the marriage, or stand up and walk out? My name is Anna, and I am 5 years younger than my husband. I stayed home through pregnancy and our baby's first year, while he worked a modest job and went out at night with friends. People thought we were happy. We smiled in photos, we held hands at parties, and we played the part. Inside our home, I was sick, scared, and alone. Tonight, with a fever and tears on my face, I decided to end this marriage and begin my life again. In the beginning, I believed this was love. We had small incomes and big hopes. When I became pregnant during the pandemic, I told myself it was a sign to slow down, to build a warm home, to cook simple meals, to save money, and to wait for brighter days. My husband said he would protect us. He promised to work, to stay with me more, and to be a father who shows up. For a while, his voice sounded steady. Friends sent baby clothes, my mother called each night, and neighbors waved from the hallway. The city was quiet then, and our apartment felt like a small boat on a dark sea. I counted kicks and learned baby songs. I wrote happy lines in a notebook. We will read stories. We will walk in the park. After the baby was born, nights were long and heavy. I woke every few hours to feed. I learned to rock, to burp, to clean tiny hands. I waited for him to change too, to step into fatherhood with both feet. Sometimes he did. Sometimes he took photos, warmed a bottle, or smiled at our son. But other nights he went out and stayed out, and the boat felt empty. I said, "Please come home earlier." He said, "It's just friends, just one night." One night became many. I called it patience. I called it understanding. I called it love. I did not yet call it a warning. He liked bright places at night, bars, clubs, loud music, jokes that went too far, friends who stayed out till dawn. He said he needed time to relax after work. He said men do this. He said I should not be dramatic. While I held our baby, he held a glass and a phone full of laughing faces. I tried to talk to him after each long night, but the talk circled like a wheel stuck in mud. He apologized, bought me snacks, and promised to stop. Then another Friday came, and the promise went out the door with him. When he stumbled in at sunrise, I saw two versions of him. One version kissed our baby and said, "I'll be better." The other version picked fights over small things, like where I put the keys or why the sink was not empty. I learned to watch his face and guess which version I would meet. I cleaned quietly, moved gently, and counted hours. My body was still healing, but there was no space to heal. On good days, he sent me a lunch photo from work and wrote, "Miss you." On bad days, he said, "What do you even do all day?" The question cut deeper than silence. I told myself, he is stressed. He will grow up when the baby grows. The baby did grow. The promises did not. When I caught COVID, I was weak for weeks. I coughed until my ribs hurt. I could not smell soup or taste tea. I asked him to buy medicine, to bring porridge, to sit with me for a while. He said the car was downstairs and I could go myself. He said I should not act like a princess. He said I was at home all day anyway. Our son cried in his crib, and I shuffled down the hallway with a blanket on my shoulders. I felt like a ghost in my own life. After I got better, the house looked the same, but something inside me had shifted. I kept the memory of his words like a small stone in my pocket. Every time he rolled his eyes, I touched the stone. Every time he said, "Why are you sick again?" I touched the stone. I asked him to go to counseling with me. He laughed and said we were not rich people who had time for therapy. I asked him to join a parenting class at the community center. He said he was busy and that I was already there every day, so I should handle it. I felt like a worker with no pay, a nurse with no rest, a wife with no partner. I started to write in my notebook again, but the happy lines were gone. I wrote questions instead. If he loved me, would he say that? If I loved myself, would I stay silent? The stone grew heavier. When I said I wanted to return to work, he said no. He said strangers would judge me, that I should stay where he could see me, that daycare would make the baby sick, that my salary would not be worth it. I tried for a part-time shift. He said my hours were wrong. I tried for evening shifts. He said the baby needed me at night. Each path I took, he placed a wall. He called it love. He called it protection. I started to see it was control. When I filled out applications, he asked for my phone and scrolled through my messages. He said, "Don't talk to men." I said, "These are recruiters." He said, "I know what men want." I learned to hide my hope, to close forms, to shut windows when I heard his steps. The apartment felt smaller each month. I stood at the sink and looked at the dark window. My face looked tired and older than my years. I said to the glass, "You deserve to use your mind." Our son watched me as I folded small shirts on the couch. He reached for my hair and laughed. His little laugh was a spark in a cold room. I realized I wanted to be the kind of mother who shows her child what respect looks like. That meant I needed to be respected, not just useful. Tonight, I had a fever of 38 degrees. My skin was hot, my muscles ached, and the room tilted when I stood up. I texted him at work and asked for medicine. He replied with a short, "Okay." I put the baby down and lay on the sofa, and sleep took me like a wave. When the door opened, I woke to his voice dropping hard words on me. "Why are you sick? You're at home all day. Say thank you when I bring you something. I work, then I still have to care for you." I sat up and the room spun. Tears fell before I could stop them. I said, "I am sick." He said, "Sick from what?" "Laziness." The stone in my pocket turned into a wall in my chest. I saw every night at the bar, every empty promise, every eye roll, every time he called love by the wrong name. I stood up, shaking. I said, "Enough." He kept talking. I said it again, louder. I walked to the bedroom and packed a small bag for the baby and a small bag for me. I placed our son's favorite toy in the side pocket. I looked at my notebook on the shelf. I opened it to a blank page and wrote one sentence: "I choose peace." Then I turned off the light. We argued until the baby woke and cried. I held our child and felt a steel line grow inside me. My voice was quiet but firm. I said, This is not working. I am not safe here. I am not respected here. I am leaving, and I will file for divorce. He laughed at first, then he got angry, then he said I was dramatic. I handed him back the money he had sent me. I said, "Keep it. Tomorrow I will call a legal aid clinic." He said he would make it hard for me. I said, "Our son needs calm parents more than loud parents in one small room." I wrote down the things I would do: call my sister, call my friend with a spare room, call the clinic, call the community center for daycare, call HR about part-time remote work. I took photos of documents. I emailed myself copies of important files. I put our son to sleep again and sat by the door with my bag. My fever was still high, but my mind was clear. I texted my neighbor and asked her to knock in the morning so I would not be alone when I left. She replied, "I'm here." The clock moved slowly, like it was walking beside me. When he finally went to the other room, the apartment was quiet. I closed my eyes and breathed. Courage did not feel like fire. It felt like a calm hand on my back saying, "Stand." Morning came gray and soft. The neighbor knocked and hugged me at the door. I picked up my bags and lifted my son into the stroller. My husband stood in the hallway with crossed arms and a sharp mouth, but I did not look away. I said, "We will talk through lawyers from now on. You are still his father. We will make a schedule." He said something cruel, but it slid past me like rain on glass. Outside, the air was cool and clean. The street was the same street, but my feet felt new on the ground. At my friend's apartment, she made tea and put fresh sheets on a small bed. She said, "You can stay till you find your place." I called the legal aid clinic and set an appointment. I called the community health center and asked about counseling. I called HR and asked for options to return part-time. I wrote a short message to my husband. "Please send our son's health card. Please send the copy of his birth certificate." I did not ask for love. I asked for documents. That afternoon, while my child napped, I slept for the first time in weeks. The fever started to drop. When I woke up, I heard city sounds through the window. My friend had left a note on the table. "You're not alone." I put the note in my notebook. I kept the page with "I choose peace." I underlined it. I met with a lawyer who spoke with calm eyes. She explained the process: filing, temporary orders, child support, parenting plan. She said, "We focus on the child's best interest." I said, "Yes." We set a plan for communication: texts only, no late-night calls, no insults. She taught me to write short facts, not emotions. Pick up at 5 p.m., drop off at 9 a.m. Clean lines. Clear days. I visited a daycare with bright walls and small chairs. A teacher knelt to our son's height and said hello. He smiled. I filled out forms. I talked to HR about remote tasks I could start now. My friend offered to watch the baby 2 afternoons a week until daycare started. I made a simple budget: rent share, food, phone, baby needs, and a small calm fund for emergencies. I paused anything extra, even small subscriptions that made me feel less alone at night. Loneliness was cheaper than staying broken. At the community center, a counselor asked me to tell my story in 5 sentences. I said, I loved him. I waited. I got sick. He was cruel. I left. She nodded and asked, Who are you now? I said, a mother. A woman who deserves respect. A person building a safe home. She smiled and said, Good. Let's build from there.